Today on Forbes, Honor Thy Father, the saga of a drug smuggler's son. Clyde Walton Cobb might not have been the best father figure, but he was a hell of a pot smuggler. Between 1977 and 1981, Cobb, who used a suntan oil business as a front, along with a group of so-called, quote, saltwater cowboys, generated $300 million by smuggling marijuana from Cartagena, Colombia, to the rivers and swamps of the Florida Panhandle, with a vast network of airplanes and shrimp boats. At the height of his prolific drug smuggling career, Cobb, whom everyone called Bill, was responsible for bringing $14 million worth of weed into the United States every 10 days. During the government's 3.5-year investigation, dubbed Operation Sunburn, the authorities seized more than 50 tons of marijuana Cobb and his crew smuggled into the U.S. The federal government estimated that the crew successfully brought in more than 100 tons of weed in just a few years. Some 40 years later, long after Cobb passed away from cancer, his son, Brady Cobb, launched his own cannabis company, naming it Sunburn Cannabis in honor of his father. The biggest difference is that the younger Cobb is doing it legally. Brady Cobb, who's 43 years old, says, quote, "I went the licensed route because I've already had one member of my family go to prison. Now I'm just an unconvicted felon." Inside Sunburn Cannabis's headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Cobb shows off a photo of his father, wearing shorts and a Rolex, while smiling next to an 800-pound swordfish. A giant American flag covers one wall, a few hot pink Make America Great Again hats speckle a desk, and 2 weapons are in reach, a bazooka and a super soaker. Sunburn is a so-called good old boy cannabis brand, not the woke, politically correct corporate kind, preaching about how marijuana is, quote, nature's medicine. Sunburn's ethos is far more personal. Only in America could the son of a drug smuggler exceed his father's wildest dreams. Leaning on the rocket launcher, Cobb says, quote, "Sunburn is all about back when you did not have to wear seatbelts, when dudes were dudes, chicks were chicks, and everyone's having fun. If there's one thing we stand for, it is freedom." And that freedom comes with a price for its customers. Sunburn, which is on track to generate just over $50 million in revenue this year from its 13 dispensaries across Florida, competes in one of the largest cannabis markets in the U.S. The Sunshine State, which only has a medical marijuana program, sold $2 billion worth of cannabis last year, making it the country's biggest medical market. A ballot measure to legalize recreational cannabis sales in Florida is headed to the polls this November, and if it passes, the state's weed market is expected to swell to $5 billion, according to marijuana sales data firm Headset. While many cannabis companies are spending money to expand ahead of the vote, Sunburn is cutting costs. The company reduced the salaries of 86 employees, around 5% for low-level staff, and up to 35% for executives, with the goal to be cash flow positive by the third quarter of the year. Brady Cobb was born in 1981. The same year, his father and 12 others were indicted on dozens of charges related to trafficking marijuana. Bill was looking at a life sentence, according to a former federal prosecutor. But after turning state's witness, he got a better deal. If he ratted out his associates and copped to a charge of violating the RICO Act, he would only get 20 years. He went to prison in 1982. Brady grew up not seeing his dad much. Almost 20 years later, Bill would regale his son with outrageous tales of his smuggling career. But Bill would always warn Brady about not following in his flip-flops. Most criminals, of course, want their kids to become a doctor or lawyer, and that's exactly what Brady did. After graduating from law school at Barry University in Orlando in 2006, he went to work for the former Florida State Senator Jim Scott at his law firm, Tripp Scott, where Brady says he, quote, carried briefcases and shut up and listened. While Cobb had a great job and eventually made partner, he watched in the 2010s as marijuana legalization slowly started to expand from California, and knew his next step would be in the licensed cannabis economy. Speaking while eating a burger and drinking a Coors Light, he says, quote, "When I became a lawyer, part of me did it so I could do what Bill did legally." In 2016, Florida legalized medical marijuana, and Cobb wanted in. For full coverage and to read the full story, check out Will Yakowitz's piece on Forbes.com. This is Kieran Meadows from Forbes. Thanks for tuning in.